นะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะพุทธังธัมมังสังฆังนามัสสามิ Blessings from Bodhipala Monastery. I hope you can hear me. Here. If you can hear me, raise your hand. Okay, good. So, somebody today asked, why are we here in this place? Why did we build a monastery in this place? Well, since the time of the Buddha, particularly Buddhist monks and nuns have sought out quiet places to practice meditation. So quiet places means forests, countryside, mountains, wherever there are not urban areas. So outside the villages and towns and cities of the world, there's plenty of forests and countryside around. So it just makes sense if you're devoting your whole life to training your mind, which is what the life of a monastic is all about. Then you look for some places that are conducive for that training, meaning fairly quiet and secluded, not too many distractions, not too many things happening, because this helps. It's not an absolute guarantee that your mind will settle down and become peaceful, or that you'll develop the kind of qualities that you need to develop meditation, but it's a good starting point. What we call Gaya Viveka in Buddhism, getting some physical seclusion. For lay people, you can also gain that following the Sangha out to these places, practicing with them maybe. Or even if you're living in an urban area, a city, your secluded place is perhaps your room or the corner of your room in your house, in your home. You just have to make the best of what opportunities you have. But for a monastery, a place where Sangha go seek out a quiet place, and you tend to go further afield. So we've come to this place, it's called Mount Pleasant. It's a very apt name because the place is very pleasant, peaceful, beautiful, you might say, beautiful in the way of nature, and conducive to the practice. They have very, what would the word be, impressive sunrises here. The hills, these hills around us are called the Adelaide Hills, and they're not that high, they're not low either, but they're not high, they're not like, it's not a mountain range as such, it's hills, rolling hills. And so when the sun comes up, kind of pokes its head up from behind the hills in the morning, and you get a good reminder of something the Buddha said once. He said the arising of right view, samadhi, in the mind of a person, a practitioner, is like the sun arising in the morning. And you see that very clearly here because there's very few clouds in the sky. It doesn't rain very much here. So the skies tend to be clear. And so you see the sunrise, you see the sort of yellow, blurry light first, and then you actually see the disk of the sun come up from behind the hill and slowly move up into the sky. And you see the sort of sheet of light coming from the sun gradually spreading across the hills, the valleys, until the whole sky is lit up. And the Buddha compared this to the arising of right view, samadhi, based on listening to the Dhamma, associating with Kalyana Mitta, fellow practitioners who understand the way of practice, noble ones, listening to the Dhamma of noble ones and respecting that. All of these are factors that help us to bring our views, our thoughts, beliefs in line with the Buddhist teachings. And that makes a great change in our mind. And that change is as powerful as like the sun rising in the morning. The sky was previously dark, the night sky. But then the sun arises and it completely changes to the daytime sky, which is full of light. So here it always reminds me of that when I see the sunrise in the east. It's like the arising of right view when you understand a point of Dhamma that maybe before you didn't understand, or you hear a teaching or think of a teaching that even if you've already understood or heard before, perhaps you forgot or it's gone to the back of your mind. So then when it pops up into your mind, it kind of brightens you. Someone was saying today that the biggest form of mental and most common form of mental illness in Australia is depression. Anxiety is a sort of close second, but depression is probably the most widespread kind of mental illness and unhappiness that humans in Australia are experiencing. And many people have said how when they hear the Dhamma or they learn to meditate and improve mindfulness, their mindfulness, learn to turn their attention inwards and then also start reflecting on sila, their speech, their actions, from a place of right view, understanding about good karma, bad karma. Then this is like a big change. It's like the light breaking through the darkness of their depression. Of course, there's depression. Sometimes it's a very serious illness, physical and mental. Sometimes it's more temporary, and probably everyone experiences some depression sometimes. But when you bring the Dhamma to bear on, a mood of negativity, depression, unhappiness, often it can help to bring in some light into the mind. And so reflecting or reminding yourself of the sunrise can point you in the right direction. You've got to find the Dhamma that will help you get through your mood if you're feeling depressed. And so many different Dhammas and teachings and reflections can help with that. The one very common one that the Buddha encouraged and many of our teachers encourage is just to reflect on and remind yourself of wholesome actions you've done in the past, the good karma you've made, things you've done in the way of dana, say like charity, helping others, supporting others who maybe have been in more need than you, or just doing things, favors, or giving help, or words of advice, or support to other people. Remembering that tends to brighten the mind, makes you feel better, gives a bit more meaning to your life. Or sometimes remembering things that other people have done for us, whether it's parents, siblings, family members, or friends, or sometimes work colleagues, or occasionally even strangers. Remembering acts of kindness, support, help that we've received sometimes over long periods of time. Say like if you remember teachers at school who may have helped you, obviously your parents helped you over again. Normally speaking, that would be the case. Remembering the help you've received from others, again, brings light, it's like sheds light into the mind, brightens the mind, because you're now focusing on something more positive, recognizing that you have both maybe made good karma and also received the fruits of your previous good karma. And these are not small things, because they brighten the mind when we think like that. This is something you can do in meditation, but you can also do in any activity or any time of day or night to brighten the mind. And maybe it should also be part of our practice, recollecting the good we've done, and consciously, with awareness, with mindfulness perhaps, to bring up a wholesome state or a better state of mind, and to counter the tendency towards negativity, depression, only seeing what's wrong with ourselves, our life, the world, and so on. So just seeing a sunrise, if you've thought about this before, you've heard that teaching, maybe just seeing the sunrise already does that to you. It reminds you to focus your mind back on something wholesome. Of course, if you meditate regularly, then you can do it in that way. Just go to your meditation objects. So if you regularly recollect the Buddha, recite Buddha or chant Iti Piso, recollect the qualities of the Buddha, or in any way you recollect the Buddha. Or if you regularly practice mindfulness of breathing, or you recollect the theme of death, Marananusati, or any of the other meditation objects that people use, that will brighten your mind, or tend to brighten your mind when you really turn genuinely or sincerely turn to your meditation object. And not just during a meditation period, but at any time in your day. You can do this, if only for a few moments. It's like a little bit of brightness, a glimpse of that early morning sun comes into your mind, then you're suddenly more aware, you're paying more attention to yourself, what you're thinking, how you're feeling. And if you have been caught into some negativity, doom and gloom, then it can maybe part the clouds of your doom and gloom at that moment. And sometimes it can be quite profound. You just turn your mind to think or focus on your meditation object, and the suffering, the unhappiness you were experiencing before just drops away quite quickly. Maybe not always. Sometimes you have to work very hard at it, of course. But sometimes, just in a few moments, your whole mood can change. Sometimes it's prompted from external things, so like listening to the Dhamma, perhaps chanting, going to a place like a monastery that is quiet and maybe has certain things that help to remind you of the Buddha and his teachings, so like a Buddha statue or a chedi or some religious object perhaps. There's many ways it can, our attention can be turned back to a meditation object or to the Dhamma. So also that includes, lifestyle, how we spend our time. If you are depressed, often we are our own worst enemies. So we do things that actually make it worse or indulge our depression. So we don't get out of bed very much, unfortunately. And that's one of the symptoms, isn't it? When you're feeling really down, you don't even want to get up in the morning. Or we just sit in our chair, kind of gloomy, not doing much. Or we sometimes do things that are self-destructive, so like drinking, drugs, or like someone today was talking about their sister who's gambling, kind of addicted to gambling. Often when you're depressed, you actually do the very worst thing, and it only makes it worse. It's like indulging your mood and then doing something unskillful that just takes you downhill. So that's why the practice of meditation, listening to the Dhamma and meditating can be so valuable. But it takes some effort, some practice. It's something that you may have to commit to or remind yourself to keep doing. And people often admit to me when I ask them, are you keeping up your meditation practice? And they say, haven't done it for a while. I was meaning to. It's a good idea. I agree it's a good idea. But they always say the hardest part of meditation is just getting started. But if you have done it before then, and you're familiar with a meditation object, well, really you can turn to that object anytime that you remind yourself to do that. And you don't even have to be sitting cross-legged on the floor. You can, be in a car or walking along the street or anything. So this is a big part of our practice, reminding ourselves of the power of turning our attention inwards, the power of mindfulness, and the insight, the understanding that can arise from that. And it can sometimes be very quick and very, very painless. It doesn't necessarily take a lot of effort, but just enough effort to turn your attention inwards to a meditation object and maybe move away from a train of thought or a particular emotion that you were experiencing. Bring your mind back to the present moment and see that emotion or that train of thought in a more objective way and recognize, oh, it's just thinking, or it's just a feeling. Which is what mindfulness does. When you're more mindful, you're paying attention to your body, your mind, how you feel, what's going on. Instead of taking it all to be self, we say identifying with it as self, me, myself, these now become objects of mindfulness. And you can be mindful of thinking, mindful of feelings, pleasant and painful, mindful of your body, what's going on. And that already removes some of the pain or the sting, and particularly if you are suffering, it already removes some of the worst part of it because you're now seeing suffering as suffering. The first noble truth, dukkha, seeing or knowing dukkha as dukkha. You need to be mindful to do that. You need to pay attention. And you need to practice. You need to do it often. And this practice is open to anyone, man, woman, young, old, whoever, wherever. But you do have to engage. You have to commit. You have to make some effort. And also, as you practice or you have the wish to practice, you probably notice aspects of your lifestyle which support that. So like coming to a quiet place is always very supportive of that, very conducive. But also other aspects of our lifestyle you'll notice are quite obstructive, get in the way or make things harder, don't they? Hard to be mindful when you're very, very busy to the point where you're maybe over busy, overworked, overtired, got too much on your plate, too many responsibilities. We always have a certain choice in our life, and we have some flexibility, some room for maneuver, or room for movement and choice. But sometimes we just let things slide, so we take on too much or get too busy or get too worn out. Then of course it is hard to be mindful or to even stop for 1 minute, to pause your day for 1 minute. Seems like a big thing to do. So sometimes we have to consciously look at our life and say, is my life really conducive to developing more peace, more understanding of the Dhamma? Or am I just throwing up endless obstacles to the Dhamma? Of course, some things we can't control and some things there's not much you can do about. Some of our duties and responsibilities in families or workplaces and life there's not much we can do about. We just have to be patient and live with that. But some of the choices we make only make life harder, don't they? How we spend our time, and whether it's a choice between surfing the net, watching something on a screen, or turning your attention towards the in and out breath. Well, quite often the technology or the entertainment or the distraction will win. That's where you have to have some discipline. Like my teacher, Ajahn Kalyano, used to say, part of the role of sila is to get you to be able to be mindful of your in and out breath. Often sila is seen as just a sort of a simple moral code that you have to take on and practice. But sila is practice for developing meditation, both mindfulness, samadhi, and insight. It's like guiding your actions and your speech towards that end, towards the end of being mindful of a meditation object. And if you use that way of thinking, sometimes you don't actually have to remember your precepts, as rules or guidelines that you've taken on. It's more like you start observing different activities and ways of behavior, and you realize there are some things that just don't support being mindful. Obvious one might be something like playing a video game. People often try and fool themselves and say, "Oh, I play video game. I'm very mindful of the movements. I'm training my samadhi to, win the points in whatever way. Maybe as you kill your way through your points and gain more points." But really, they're just kind of fooling themselves, aren't they? It's something you absorb into in a way of just you're no longer mindful. You're just indulging in the excitement, the stimulation, whatever. It's just one example. Music could be another one. So entertainments, sensual stimulation often is just a distraction, even though we sometimes say, "Oh, it helps me relax." Well, there may be some truth to that in a short-term way, but really it's a kind of indulgence. So if you're interested to develop meditation, sometimes you have to reduce some of these activities, play a few less games, listen to a bit less music, cut out some of your socializing, maybe. There's no one answer here, but you have to look at your lifestyle and see what is conducive to meditation and be mindful of a meditation object and what is not. Because we have choices. It's not always something that someone else is forcing on us or the world is forcing on us. Often it's just our own choice, and we call it going with the flow, and the flow may be just to spend your time looking at a screen rather than putting effort into watching the breath. That's where the choice comes, isn't it? That's where you may need to be more disciplined, make more effort. Sometimes it can be subtle things, just, the weather, your health. Obviously it's harder to practice meditation if you're ill or injured or something, or if the weather is hard. Like today I was outside and I was walking meditation, and it was really windy. So if it's really windy, sometimes it's just too hard to do walking meditation outside, or if it's raining, obviously. But even then, sometimes it's a matter of being determined, isn't it? Like the famous Buddhist nun, the enlightened nun in Thailand, Mechi Gyal, she used to walk meditation for many hours at night in the rainy season. And people always ask, "How did you walk?" Because you got no roof over your walking path. She said she'd just put up an umbrella and walk with an umbrella for maybe hours in the middle of the night, but holding an umbrella because she wanted to practice mindfulness. So when you hear about that from other teachers, other practitioners, then you realize in the end, practicing mindfulness, letting go of your depression, anxiety, your worries, your attachments, a lot of it is just up to you, isn't it? It's just whether you're willing to train and practice, or you're willing to follow the flow of your desires, attachments, or negative moods, whatever. There's a lot of choice in this. Even though we often have our excuses ready when someone like me says, "Did you do your meditation?" It's a matter of choice, isn't it? Whether you really want to train, whether you really want to free your mind from suffering or not. If someone really wants to do it, they will do it. And the various obstacles are not necessarily insurmountable. It's just about learning how to bring up effort, commit yourself, how to do it. As Ajahn Chah would often say, when it's time to do it, just do it. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to bring up the excuses. You just do it. And then, you might notice your mind improves. After a little while, you feel better, your mind clears perhaps, more mindfulness comes up and you feel better. You don't necessarily have to be a monk or a nun, you can be a layperson. If you commit to the practice, you may get enlightened before the monks and nuns even. In the history of Buddhism, it's not all monks and nuns who become enlightened. Sometimes it's lay people as well. It's that Upasika, the lady in the time of the Buddha, what's her name? Matika Mata, a lay practitioner, 8 precept practitioner lady who had faith in the Buddha, strong faith in the Buddha, and was following the Buddhist path, had faith in Sangha. And one time there's a group of 60 monks wandering, looking for a good place to meditate. They weren't sure where to kind of settle. In those days, you just wandered from forest to forest between the villages. And they came across a nice forest and they're wondering, well, is there going to be any support here? Can we actually settle here, maybe spend the rains retreat? And Matika Mata, she came out and saw the monks and got inspired and said, oh, if you stay here, I'll support you. I'll make sure you get enough food, enough robes. We'll make some kutis, some huts for you. You can stay here. I'll make sure it all happens. So the monks thought, oh, this is a good thing. So they settled into that forest, and Matika was true to her word. She made sure every day villagers came out to offer food when the monks came into the village on alms round. They built kutis for each monk, simple little huts, probably grass roof bamboo huts in those days. And they started practicing. But because she had such strong faith, she was always thinking, oh, are the monks practicing well? Are the monks comfortable? Do they need anything? And she noticed that when the monks came on alms round, it wasn't the full 60. She'd just see 1 or 2 monks coming into the village. And they'd never be in a big group. It'd just be 1 monk or 2 monks. They'd just go in one direction, another monk would go in another direction. So she started to doubt, are the monks getting enough food? And I never see all of them. I only see a few of them. They're always going just alone in one direction or another. So she sent one of her servants, she was a wealthy lady, sent a servant to the area where the monks were camping in the forest and where they had their simple huts. And the servant went and couldn't find anyone. Nobody was there. So the servant comes back and says, I couldn't find any of the monks. So they go again. I think Matika went herself the second time. And they met one monk and they said, why haven't we seen any monks? And they said, well, everyone's in their kuti meditating. They're all diligently doing their meditation. They're not socializing. They're not wasting their time. Each one is in their own place. We only come out when someone rings the bell. So if someone's in trouble, they'll ring a bell, like if they're ill, or if there's a need to talk Dhamma, discuss the Dhamma, we ring a bell. If no one rings a bell, we just stay in our huts and we meditate. And she said, well, why are only a few monks coming into the village for alms round, Bindabat? And the monk said, well, half the monks will stay in their kutis meditating, the other half go out to collect food, but they don't want to socialize, because the Buddha said don't socialize, waste time talking. So each monk will go in a different direction on their own, collect food, come back and share it with the monks who are staying in the monastery. So she was impressed. She said, oh, this is good. Practicing noble silence, very restrained, mindful. Do you have enough robes? Yeah. Do you have enough accommodation? Yeah. So everything seemed good. Then she asked them, can they teach her some meditation? Because she'd done a lot of dharma, but she wanted to meditate. And so she asked them, what do you meditate on? She said, we meditate on the 32 parts of the body. You should recite these 32 parts, as we have in the chanting book. If you read our chanting book, Kesa, hair of the head; Loma, hair of the body; Naka, nails; Danta, teeth, touch your skin. They taught her the 32 parts of the body and said, focus your mind one by one on each part. Memorize the name, visualize it, concentrate your mind in that way, and move your mind around your body as you go from part to part. This is how we meditate. You can meditate like this too. And Martika, she had a lot of faith, a lot of inspiration. So she went home, she was doing it diligently, many hours a day, focusing on the 32 parts of the body until she could visualize what we call it ukaha nimitta, when the mind becomes calm in samadhi and a nimitta of that body part arises, and she could do this very well for each part of the body. So she got to be very skilled at calming her mind and contemplating each body part. And the monks had told her to contemplate the impermanence of the body, each body part. So like hair of the head, how your hair is impermanent. You know, it grows and then it falls out. Over the years, it will turn white. Eventually, maybe it falls out altogether, stops growing, particularly the men who go bald. Same with all the other body parts. Each body part has its own inherent impermanence, subject to change, aging, wearing out all the time. They're also unbeautiful. You know, body parts all get dirty, greasy, smelly. They don't look so good when you examine them under the lens of mindfulness. They're unattractive. They're suffering in the sense that ultimately they're a source of disease, aging, and then they don't last forever. We die. They can't bring you lasting, permanent happiness. And they're not self. You can't control your body and tell it not to get old, not to get sick, not to die. You can't really own this body. So she reflected like this. Eventually she became an anagami. She gave up all attachment to the body, saw it completely, very purely, very clearly as impermanent, not self. Gained that insight. So she became an anagami, and with that she gained samadhi and even some psychic powers, the ability to know the minds of other people. So very advanced. Then meditating, because she had these psychic powers arising, she was, again, she's worried about these monks that she's looking after, 60 monks. She thought, oh, I wonder how their practice is going. So she sent her mind out to them. She realized none of them have actually realized the Dhamma yet. None of them have samadhi. They're all practicing diligently, but none have samadhi, none have insight yet. None of them are noble ones yet. So she thought, oh, this is not good. So she went back to see the monks and taught them how to practice mindfulness of the body, because she now was an expert. She had practiced so well, she became an anagami, the third level of enlightenment, before any of the monks. So it's an often quoted story, you know, lay people can meditate and become enlightened before Sangha can. It's not necessarily always the monks know ahead and the lay people follow. Sometimes the lay people learn. So she taught all the monks how to practice, and they all became arahants. So sometimes the lay people can give Dhamma back to the monks, done with respect, done with kindness, compassion. And she had great psychic powers as well. So the monks got enlightened after the rains. They all went back to see the Buddha and said, oh, that was a really good place to practice. Martika looked after us, gave us great support. Actually, I remember another part of the story. One of the reasons these monks hadn't yet got enlightened was because actually the food wasn't really agreeing with them. She was making sure they all got a lot of food, but it wasn't quite the kind of food that agreed with them. So when she looked at their minds and their practice, she realized that, and then she changed the diet for the monks. She told the villagers, you've got to produce more variety of food, and told them different foods to present to the monks. So then that was a cause for the monks to be more comfortable, get more strength, and that's what got them to be enlightened. So anyway, they're all very happy, enlightened. They went back to see the Buddha and said, this is a great place to practice. And there was one other monk he heard, and he went back to that monastery, this newly established monastery, thinking, well, they got enlightened there, maybe I can. So he arrived back in the monastery on his own. All the other monks had left. But his habit, he's a bit of a complainer. So he went to the monastery, he said, oh, I'm here on my own. Before there were 60 monks, now it's just me. Who's going to do the cleaning? Who's going to clean the meditation hall? So he straight away went into a bit of negativity. But Martika was around and she knew what he was thinking. So she sent one of her servants out and he said, oh, I'm here to help you clean, don't worry. Then the monk was thinking, oh, I wonder if the food will be good enough here. And Martika read his mind, knew exactly what kind of food agreed with this monk. So she prepared someone. When it was Bindabat, he went out and got exactly the food he liked. So that was good. So she made sure all the conditions were just right for him. So he did eventually become enlightened too. So not only was she became enlightened as well, but she also became a great supporter of the Sangha and knew exactly what the monks needed, which helped them in their practice. There's a good story to remind us that your practice is not really dependent whether you're a monk or a lay person. It's more dependent on whether you're really committed to the practice. So maybe it's time to set aside the excuses. Now we're in the Vasa time, the range retreat. Whether you're a Sangha or you're a lay person, set aside some of those excuses. Get up in the morning, do some meditation, get to know your meditation object, do some chanting, listen to Dhamma. Or in the evening when you got some time, set aside your business. You've watched enough stuff online, you've been looking at enough stuff online, whatever it is. Now is the time to do some sitting and walking meditation, chanting, meditation, listening to the Dhamma. All these other things, the socializing, the this, the that, you can set it all aside. You may still have to do a job of work. Okay, you do that, but that's not all day long. Even in the middle of your day, you can do a few minutes meditation if you put your mind to it. There are those lay people who, attain jhana and who attain Margapala Nibbana. But that's about commitment and determination and effort in the practice. And those lay people, they put aside their excuses. They don't let all the things that we usually find as obstacles bother them. They say, no, if I'm a bit tired, never mind, I'll just practice feeling tired. If it's a bit cold, I'll just wrap up and wear warmer clothes or whatever. If there's too much noise around, I'll just focus harder on my meditation object. I won't let this noise distract me. If there's business things to do, well, I'll get my business done, but I'm going to keep mindful and keep the precepts. And when everything's done, then I'm going to do more meditation. In the end, it's about attitude. It's about commitment. It's about attitude. If you really want to get further in your meditation, that's what you have to learn. How to motivate yourself, bring up enthusiasm, set aside the excuses and do it. As Ajahn Chah used to say, just do it. You don't need to talk too much. Listen to a bit of Dhamma, find out what you need to do, and then practice. If you have a question, you ask your question, and then take it away and practice it. So much of the time we are looking for excuses, looking for reasons not to practice. Maybe you have to turn your thinking around and say, well, what are the reasons to practice? What things will help me practice? What is conducive to the practice? And then do it. Ajahn Chah said, when you do it 100%. Not 50%, not 70%, 100%. So you have to ask yourself, today, did I give 100% effort to my meditation, to my practice? No one else can do this for us. In the end, we have to look at our own effort and our own mind and what we're doing and be honest. And if you're only giving 50%, well, ask yourself, how can I improve? Where can I improve in my practice? What more can I do? The other kind of mind states we get into are, how can I get out of doing the practice? How can I get out of my chanting, my meditation? Some people say, I'm going to meditate today and then tomorrow I won't need to do it. So I'll do tomorrow's meditation today. then I've got a day to do other things. Or they didn't do it today, and then tomorrow they say, well, I'll do it tomorrow for today. We're always finding ways to kind of cut corners, shorten the time, do less, reduce the quality, reduce the quantity. That's the way of the world, isn't it? It's like when you do a job and you don't like the job, so you just want to get it over with quickly. If that's the attitude you have when you come to meditate, well, of course, you're probably not going to get very far with your meditation. You have to bring up the attitude, I want to do this 100% for the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha, for my parents, for myself, for anyone. You can dedicate your practice to anyone if you want, but you have to do it. So tonight, just giving you a few pointers, guidelines, how to summon up some effort in your practice. Maybe I'll leave the talk there, and afterwards there'll be a chance if any of you have any questions, we'll be able to answer your questions for you.
อันดัมยังดัมมกถายาสาธุกรังดดามาเสสาธุสาธุสาธุอนุโม